Okay, we're going to see answers to the general questions like what's the most recent issue that you have faced, or these questions. Uh, Next question. Tell me about the challenges you have faced and how did you resolve it? What are the common errors in your environment? What are the common problems that you face in your environment? And describe a recent problem and tell us how did you troubleshoot it. Then you'll be asked what are different types of out-of-memory errors. What are stuck threads and how do you resolve stuck thread issue? These are specific questions, the last two, but we're actually talking about the first three or four generic questions. That this is something that you will see in every interview. Now obviously every environment has certain kinds of problems, and whenever you're in WebLogic, the problems are pretty much similar everywhere. So we'll see what kind of problems a general WebLogic administrator comes across and how they get resolved. Now the most popular problems need not be the difficult problems, or else the general problem need not have a perfect solution. Whatever you have, the problems in your environment, you just try to describe it. But there's a way of doing it. Let's see how we do that. I'll first take a list of those problems. Then we'll get into each of them briefly. Now this is one question that easy to ask and difficult to answer. Whatever you answer, most likely the interviewer may not be satisfied. So you're going to answer really high, a lot of problems, and this is how we are doing it, kind of. Now we will see by the end of this session, probably 30-minute session, you will know what are the common things, what are the recent common problems that you normally come across as a WebLogic admin. Now obviously if you pick up a couple of common problems, and you will say they are my recent problems. Now the same common problems can be converted into a challenging issue. We'll see how it has to be done. Then we will see certain other things, technical things like what are the error codes and what they mean, and some problems that you encountered in your environment. Basically they both are same. Second and last points are pretty same. But you should be able to answer any question related to the uncomfortable question that you get. Tell me about the most challenging thing that you faced ever in your life. Alright, it's more like you'll be asked like something like, let's say you're going to die and you don't have a choice. So that never really happens in WebLogic administration, because there's always somebody above you where you can say, I'll call that guy. But let's see how we actually do. Now let's first look at the common issues. There are certain common issues that you come across when you're working in WebLogic. Now look, if you look at the common issues, you'll see the file system is full. Means you don't have enough space in the file system. Another problem is application slow in production for whatever reasons. Look at why application slowness is caused. The 3 points for that one. Then a URL not accessible in production. Means a customer complains or user complains that he's trying to hit a URL, then it's not accessible. Then other common problem is deployment problems in QA. Means because these are new builds and you are deploying it to the QA for the first time, it's possible that the code itself is wrong or some configuration still needs to be adjusted. So you will see many of the problems in QA deployment. Another problem is user lock problem. This is a very simple problem which can be solved easily. Whereas the first problem, file system full, is a very frequent problem. So you need to keep checking for any backups, any unnecessary files in your environment and keep deleting them. Alright, usually you have backups of your domain everywhere. So whenever you see that file system is 80% full, your monitoring tool sends you an alert that your file system is 80% full. Then you need to manually go into the file system, do a CD into each of them, see if there are any zip files, tar files, unnecessary files, not the necessary ones, and remove those things. Or else you can use a find command to actually drop those basically files. Alright, so these are common issues. So just make sure you remember this list. The file system is full, application slow in production, URL not accessible in production, deployment problems in QA, username locked out. Now the solutions for this one, file system full, we have to go into the file system and actually delete all the unnecessary files like backups you might have or log files that are older than 10 days, that kind of thing. Application slow in production, you know how to solve this one, the 3 points thing. URL not accessible in production. Now let's look at the problem first of all. Why a URL will not be accessible? Either the user is not using the correct URL, or something on the user desktop changed, or something on our server changed. Any of these reasons. Now the first thing when somebody complains a URL is not accessible, the first thing you're going to do is you will check whether what URL they are using and if that URL is accessible internally or not. Even before you do that, means even before you ask the user for the URL, you can actually go ahead and check your monitoring tool, make sure everything is in green, no issues, all the applications are accessible, everything from your side. Means you do a basic health check of your production systems and make sure whether it's up or not. If you find that something is not up, obviously whatever the user is saying is probably correct and you need to start looking from the point where you saw the issues. Means you go ahead with the regular troubleshooting mechanism, like how do you look at the log files, then you look at enable the debug mode and all that stuff. Now, but if you don't see anything on your side, everything is in green, then you ask what URL the user is accessing. Now you take that URL, you see if you can access that URL, because sometimes what happens is the users are usually let me just open Zoom it. Now what happens sometimes is now this is how the user is accessing. So you have a browser that the user is using. Alright, he hits some URL over here. Alright, now it goes through routers Alright. Now there is a firewall, you see here. Alright. After the firewall, there is a load balancer, then there are Apache servers, and then there are WebLogic servers, then there is a database. Now this is our general. Now the firewall stuff here might be causing an issue. Means maybe the firewall had changed, or maybe there was an upgrade on the change. So when you actually look at a problem and try to troubleshoot it, the first thing you ask this guy is, when did this problem actually start? Means, was it there? Did the user try yesterday? Was it working and today it's not working, or is it the first time he is trying? If it is the first time that the user is trying, then you might have to see whether they are using correct one or not, whether the port is open or not, all that stuff. If the user says it was accessible yesterday but not today, then something has changed that caused the problem. Something changed can be on the user's desktop or any of the upgrades on our entire system. Then you're going to check your mails and see if there are any upgrades scheduled. The upgrade could be a network upgrade, a firewall upgrade, a router patching upgrade, a router firmware upgrade. Any upgrade might cause an issue. Now you will see, was there any upgrade? If there is an upgrade, you try to see if there is any relationship between this URL not accessible and then the upgrade. So that you need to actually check with the network administrator that is it possible that this URL may be impacted because of that kind of upgrade. So because see, on your side you are saying everything is good. Other users are able to access it. If nobody is able to access it, then your application is good, then something that has happened last night probably has caused it. So your analysis has to go in a general direction. First you take the URL from the user, you see if it is working or not, you see if the user is getting any errors, any error messages on his screen. You try to map those error messages on your log files. So it's a general direction of troubleshooting. And somewhere in this entire path, you will, when somewhere in this entire end-to-end flow, you will find that, let's say, you will find there is a problem. Normally, let's say browser. When you hit the browser, you see whether the request is reaching the load balancer or not. We just ask the network administrator if the IP of the user is in the logs or not. If the load balancer is not receiving the request at all, it's possible the firewall is stopping it. Then you ask the security team whether that IP of the user is visible in the logs of the firewall or not. If it is visible, it means it's coming to firewall but not to the load balancer. So something is wrong in the firewall. So you need to first check on your own system, make sure everything is good. If things are not good, obviously you will fix it. If things are good, then you will look at whether load balancer is actually doing or whether firewall is actually doing or not. Then whether the user is actually using the right URL or not. Then the deployment problems is a general thing. Deployment problems, you will see couple of ways, like class definition not found, stack overflow issues, null pointer exceptions. Class definition not found is basically class not found. You will try to see if the user has actually, if the developer has actually packaged the code or not. Stack overflow is basically a code issue. The stack gets overflown because of a recursive function call. So which means again the code needs to be checked. Then you will see null pointer exception. Null pointer exception is what is called dancing reference. Means your Java code is referring to a pointer which is not defined. That's what is null pointer exception. So even that null pointer exception, you're going to talk to your developer about it. Apart from that, if there are any issues like, deployment failed because there is no data source, in which case you will say required resources not available. So you make sure you create those resources like data sources you might want, and Um, Usually the data sources issues, or you might, if you have GMS, you might have queues, topics, persistence, stores. So those resources you create first, and then you deploy the application. Now, the first time when you're deploying the application, you actually will be continuously in touch with the developers over the phone or over the mails especially. Then user locked problem is not so much a problem. Generally, a user gets locked if there is 5 invalid logins. Means 5 times you type the wrong password, it gets locked for 30 minutes. Now, either a user can wait for 30 minutes, or if the user asks you to unlock, you can actually go to the WebLogic console and unlock it. Now, how to unlock it, the screenshot by screenshot description is in another document. Check the other document. Now, these are the common issues we're talking about. Now, apart from the common issues, there are certain issues that are not so common, but you will come across them. So we have listed about 11 problems. Not all of them probably you will understand. I'll try to basically list out things that you will understand. See this. The problem 1, let's say the database crashed. So when a database crashed, what happens? When a database crashes, we know that WebLogic will disable the connection pool. Means the WebLogic suspends the connection pool. When WebLogic suspends the connection pool, obviously the application will not be able to access the connection object. Now, once the database comes up, you can actually resume the pool from the console, or if the resuming pool not working, then you can actually restart the WebLogic source. So this is database crash. When database crash, there is nothing much work that you need to do. When database crashes, especially, you will have issues with data sources. That's it. And obviously, application users will not be able to access anything. So you just have to wait till the database crash is fixed, and so you idly restart the WebLogic source. Then CPU utilization went to 100%. So you will see how to solve it. It's already in the 3 points. Make sure you answer that one. The problem number 3 is a file system is 100%. Now, normally when the file system is, it should not reach 100%. Means before it reaches 100%, you should actually have some alert mechanism that says it's 100%. Therefore, clean up. But when a file system, sometimes it happens that a large file got created all of a sudden and it filled up everything, even before your monitoring tool could send you an alert. So when it reaches 100%, the problem is, even if you delete some of the files, the operating system will not release the space. So you try to delete a couple of files, let's say big files, but still it will show 100% only. In such a case, there is nothing you can do. You just have to ask the operating system, Unix admin, to restart the server. Now this is sometimes you will see this problem. So it's important that your file systems do not reach 100% space. Now it's not necessary that every time there is 100%, this scenario will happen. Means even when there are 100% space full, there are cases where you will delete the files and it gets released. But we are talking about a difficult situation wherein you are trying to delete, but the space is not getting released. In that case, you need to raise a ticket to the Unix system administrator, asking that the file system is 100% and you are trying to delete it, but it's not getting cleared up. So the Unix system administrator is that they will use a root file system, a root user to delete it, or they'll unmount it and mount it again, or if not possible, they will try to restart the box. They'll have their own mechanisms. Alright, so that's one and not so frequent but rare-ish. Now the same way like file system, you have the next problem is a temp space becomes 100%. Now the temp space is more like a temporary space for operating system. So usually you should not put any important files in the temp space. Anything that is put into temp space automatically gets deleted at restart, system restart. It will not be, it's automatic. Once nobody is deleting it, it automatically gets deleted. So basically temp space is for the operating system, not for the regular user. But what we do is sometimes we tend to put files in temporary space, so it becomes 100%, or you have a program that is accidentally writing to temp space /temp, so that becomes 100. Now when the /temp becomes 100%, the server hangs, means the server will not respond. You will not be able to log into the server sometimes, means the SSH prompt will be very slow. In that case again, there is nothing much you can do. You need to raise a ticket to the Unix system administrator. They will try to see something, clean up something, or they usually restart the server. Then the problem number 5 and problem number 6 are, there are problems, but let's say you don't worry about it. Just to give you a brief description, MQ is a MQ is integrated with WebLogic, let's say. So there is an application on WebLogic. Application is generating the messages. The messages are transferred to MQ over a JMS bridge. Now if the MQ servers crashed, the JMS bridge will stop working. JMS bridge is basically the mechanism that transfers automatically the messages from one JMS implementation to other. So this is MQ. This is WebLogic. So this is WebLogic, this is MQ. You have a JMS bridge, let's say, like this. On the JMS bridge, on the left side, you have source destination. On the right side, you have target destination. And you have source and target destinations. So messages are flowing from here to here. So what you have done is, you basically, what happened here is basically this was crashed. And you have source and target destinations. So messages are flowing from here to here. So what you have done is, you basically, what happened here is basically this was crashed. When this crashed, the messages cannot flow to the right side, which means the queue on your WebLogic is filling up, and the threads on your WebLogic always try to send message to the queue. Now because send message to the MQ. Now because MQ is not available, the threads will be working for more than 600 seconds. And we know if somebody works for more than 600 seconds, it's a stuck thread. So when this situation occurs, means the reason for the stuck thread is basically MQ not available. Now the only way you can unstuck this thread is by bringing up the MQ so that the messages start flowing again. This is not so common problem, but this is one thing that you can say happened recently. Means we have MQ, so there is a separate team who takes care of MQ. So you ask the MQ system administrators to bring it up fast, or else you can say sometimes if MQ does not respond, you will see lots of stuck threads here. Then you will ask the MQ administrators to bounce their application. Bouncing is basically restarting the application. So when they restart the application, the stuck threads on our side will go away. That's one problem you will come across usually if you have MQ. Then problem number 6 is a wrong cron job triggered automatic reboot. Now don't worry about this problem. This is difficult to explain. Leave it. Now look at problem number 7. After the quarterly patch upgrade on the operating system, the file systems did not mount. If the file system did not mount, our BA home and the domain home are not available. So what you have here is, it's just like a operating system patches. Normally every quarterly, means every 3 months, the OS critical patches or OS regular patches get upgraded. Critical patches upgraded as and when they arrive, means because that's critical, security related patches. But general patches, once in every 3 months, the Unix system administrators will try to update the patch. Now when the patching is done, obviously the system requires a restart. Now because the system requires a restart, applications cannot be running when the patching is done. Now obviously the patching will be done for all the systems at a time. Means if there is a production patching, we will patch all the systems of production at a time. And so that there is no too much downtime at multiple places, multiple times. The same way in QA you have a lot of environments, so you can they will do it on a daily basis. So this patching usually happens over a week. Means one day there is QA, one day there is UAT, one day there is pre-prod, like that. Then finally they go to production. And production, let's say if you have 100 boxes, all the 100 boxes patching will be done at a time. Then after that they go to DR. That will be after some time. But the production patching is important. When any of these patchings occur, usually we shut down the entire application, which means we shut down the Apache servers, we shut down WebLogics, then the DBS will shut down the database if it is running. If that box is also involved. Usually that's how it's done. Entire environment related boxes will be patched at a time. Now for that one, the Unix system administrators will ask us, what are the boxes, which environments you want to patch us first. So there will be communication. After the communication is approved, they'll give us a schedule. So this all happens almost for 10 days, 15 days. Now usually after the patch upgrade, what happens is the file system will not be visible. Means you shut down the servers, then you ask the Unix administrators to do the patching. Now the asking basically happens over the mail, because OS patching happens at midnight and Unix administrators are usually in US. So you shut down the servers here and then you send a mail to those guys. Those guys will start the patching. And once they are done with the patching, they will send a back mail to you and you will start to bring up your application. When this happens, usually sometimes the file systems will not be visible. Means let's say the BA home is not visible. When you do a LS in BA home, you won't see anything, empty. Then all that you have to do is you ask the Unix administrator that this is not visible. So usually they fix the problem after a couple of reboots, or they try to mount it. It gets fixed, so you start your application again. But for that reason, so what you have to do is, before the OS patching is done, you need to take a snapshot of all your file systems. So you do a df-k and you take a print screen, keep it with you. Once the patching is done, you again do a df-k and you match it with what you had before. So that's also one of the problems. Then another thing is, let's say next problem number 8. You deployed the application to production servers and all of them went to prepared state. Now ideally this should not happen in production, because the application was tested thoroughly in QA, UAT, LT, everywhere. Still it got into prepared state. Now if it goes to prepared state, usually you try to activate it from the console. If the activation is successful, well and good. If the activation is not successful, then you shut down the server, and then because you have a large number of servers, you work on one server first. So you shut down all the servers and then you clear the cache and you try to restart the server and see if the application is coming to the actual state. Now that usually should work. If it is not working, then you try to undeploy and deploy the application again. If it's still not working, then you roll back the changes. Means you your the senior will decide that we cannot go ahead with that this thing, roll back all the changes, so old application gets deployed. So the decision will be taken by somebody else, but after all the trials, usually you roll back. Recent problem 9, don't worry about it. Recent problem 10, this is interesting. UAT data source is wrongly connected to production. Customer complained they are seeing strange old data on the reports. Strange data, old data, or wrong data. Now what happened here was UAT is user acceptance testing. Now when you have a data source in it, sometimes it happens that you wrongly point it to production database. When you point it to production database, when they are testing, what is the data they will show? They will see the live data, which is strange. They are not supposed to see the live data. So the customer will complain, oh, we are trying to do this testing, but we are seeing live data, which should not happen, so something went wrong. Now, if you see that they are seeing live data, now you know, okay, live data is available only in production. And how do you connect into production? By data sources. So you need to check the data sources and see they are actually pointing to the right UAT database. Then problem number 11 is a network related problem. It says network problem and some particular geographical users were not able to access the application. We have identified the problem to be one of the routers. So the problem here was, let's say you have your application. Alright, you have your application, everybody is accessing. Now assume one set of guys are accessing it from one router, other set of guys are accessing it from second router. Your company has two routers. Behind these two routers is where these two routers are sending to firewall. Behind the firewall you have a load balancer. And then we know Apache servers and then WebLogic servers, this stuff. So this is router 1. This is router 2. So let's say the users in Delhi are accessing through router 1. Users in Chennai are accessing it through router 2. Alright. Delhi or let's say New York. Or this is, let's say, for sake of simplicity, Chennai and Los Angeles or California. Los Angeles, it's usually called LA. So now the users in Delhi are complaining we are not able to access. When they say they are not able to access, the first thing you will see when somebody says they are not able to access the application, the first thing you're going to see is whether it's accessible or not from your side. Means you make sure your application is up and running. You make sure you are able to access it internally, all that stuff. Then also the problem is, okay, only part of the users are not accessible. Means application has no issues. Otherwise, nobody would be able to access it. Because these guys are able to access it means application is running. Something else is wrong. Now, the other thing could be either the router itself is wrong or probably the firewall has issues. Now, that's obviously a problem with the network team. So you're going to get in touch with the network team. You will see if there are any issues with the routers and if there are any alerts that if there is any problem that is happening with the router. So usually in that case, you send out a mail to the network teams and asking, is there any problem going on? If there is any problem going on, they will let you know that, yeah, there is a problem going on. Then you can actually update the user about, yeah, there is a router problem. So we have issues that only Delhi part of users are not able to access it. So once the router problem gets resolved, they will be able to. Alright, so that's another problem. Now, so when you are asked about problems, you usually you see the general problems, and then usually end it with a other problems. Like apart from this, we will see the sentence. You give a list of problems. Like when somebody asks what are the issues you have, we have file system full, application slowness, URL not accessible, deployment problems in QA, user lockout sometimes, then database crashes, CPU utilization 100%, then temp space full that we recently came across. Then our MQ servers were hanged, so we had seen a lot of stuck threads. At that point, we wanted to restart our servers because to get rid of the stuck threads, and then otherwise, during the operating system patching, we see file systems not being mounted, so BE home, domain home will be missing. In that case, again, we have to ask the Unix system administrators to fix it. Then deployments, doing deployments to production, sometimes it goes to production state. So again, we have to either roll back the deployment or fix it. Then issues with the data sources, network related issues. Apart from that, we have issues with the build, and then the first 2 days of production deployment, you'll see usually performance related issues like stuck threads, application slowness. Yeah, these are the various problems we came across. So that's how you end the answer. So you're given a lot of problems. Pretty much you have given a very big list of all the problems that a WebLogic administrator will ever come up with. Now, many of the people who are working as WebLogic administrators may not have seen all these problems. But you have given a list. Now, when you end the list, make sure you end it nicely. Alright. Now, any of these issues, the next question, what's the most challenging issue? Now, any of these issues can be challenging, especially the recent problems. Now, the challenging issue, especially if you see here, is this one. Now, you don't say challenging issue is this one. Any of the issue is a challenging issue. You can actually convert a normal issue into a challenging issue. It all depends on how you say it. Now, when you say something is, I think your house is burning, or some house on the road is burning, you're walking past that road, and you try to help. Now, when you're walking past that road, when you try to help, let's say after some time you're describing that to somebody else. Now, when you describe it, you can describe it like nothing really happened, or you can describe it like too much happened and you tried to enter. Now, the way you say it makes all the change. Like, let's say you can say, oh yeah, there was a fire, so we tried to douse it. We tried to basically stop it, and a couple of guys were there, so we put some water on it and it stopped. That's one way of saying it. Another way of saying it is, you use your hands and everything. You say, there was a fire. Everything was burning. People were running around, and then there was a kid who was about to fall from the 3rd floor, and the fire engine was not there. There was no water, so people are screaming and crying. So then I went there. Once I went there, then I brought in a big hose of water, and then 3 other guys, we all tried to stop the fire, but it wasn't. It was intense, so I had all these burns and other stuff. You see these burns on my hand, so it burned, but still we were able to do it at the end with lots of difficulty. This is another way of saying. Now, actually, the same thing happened in both the cases. Means the fire is still a fire, and you doused it, but the way you say it makes all the change. So when you say, then there is a problem. So let's say performance issue, we got stuck threads. You won't say we got stuck threads yesterday. You say we got stuck threads yesterday. There was database logs. There were, all of a sudden there are too many alerts to our mailbox, and we thought something went wrong. So we looked at our monitoring system. Everything is in red. So all the servers are kind of hung. Then we saw the logs files, and everywhere there are stuck threads. And when there are stuck threads, then we tried to see what the problem is, and there are also alerts of the database logs. And when the database logs are there, obviously there will be stuck threads. Then we'll try to see why the database locks are there. If something a new request came in all of a sudden, or some cron job triggered, because of which there are too many requests, that's why there are DB locks. Or is there anything new that is happening in the environment? So then we try to then we identified there are database locks. We got a lot of alerts. We contacted the DBA immediately over the phone, and then we were able to basically release the DB locks, and all the stuck threads gone away automatically. So that's how you see it. It's about how you say it. It's not what actually happened. A happening is always same, but the way you say it makes all the difference. Alright, some people say nothing really happened, oh that's a normal thing. Other people say, oh, too much happened. So you need to say always. It's called dramatization. Dramatization basically makes all the difference. So make sure you change the way you say it. Make it dramatize it. Then we'll see some technical these things quickly. Alright, you might come across this thing like, what are the error codes and what is their meaning? The error codes, you will see the series of error codes: 200 series, 300 series, 400 series, 500 series. Each series has a meaning. It's series by series. So you will see these 4 types of series: 200, 300, 400, 500. 200 series are not errors, they are successful. 300 series are also not errors, but they are redirections, which means I can have 2 websites like encodeit.net and encodeit.com, encodeit.in, or this, because they're all encodeit. Now, it does not mean that I have 5 different websites. What I usually do is, you have one website, you redirect it to encodeit.in, which is the main site. So whenever somebody accidentally hits encodeit.com, we want them to come to our website. That's called a redirection. Now when you see a 300 series errors, they are usually page redirection errors. Means you tried to redirect it, but the redirection did not happen. That's why you will see a 300 error. 400 series errors, you will see the most popular 400 series errors: 404, 403. 404, page cannot be displayed. 403 is a forbidden error. Forbidden is you basically do not have authentication or authorization to actually access that page. This is related to security. 404 is a page cannot be displayed because either the page is not available or you are hitting a wrong URL. Then all 500 errors are internal server errors. Internal server error means there is something wrong with the code. So when such an error occurs, you ask the user, what's the error message? Then looking at the error message, you can actually error codes and their meanings. There is a nice document available on web. So you can have a look at it and see what is happening. You see this thing? 200 is success. 200 is successful request. Then 300 is redirection. 400 is client problems. 403 is forbidden. 404 is not found. 500 is internal server error. So these are the errors. Now you don't have to really remember each of them. Just remember the general idea, and then when the user gets an error, ask the user what is the actual number. Depending on what the actual number is, you will see that HTTP verb used to access this page is not allowed, method not. So looking at the error, you will be able to troubleshoot it. Alright. So these are the error codes and their meanings. Now you will see these error codes in Apache logs, especially the HTTP, because these are HTTP based requests. Anytime when this error occurs, you will see it in HTTP logs. And you have HTTP logs, one at Apache level, one at WebLogic level. So the log name is access.log. In the access.log, if you see, you will see 200 related errors, which is actually a successful. Alright, 200 error code, or else you will see 400. So 200, if you have everything 200, it's good, means everything is successful. If you see any 400 errors, just make sure they are valid errors. It does not mean that you will not see any 400. There will be some 400 errors like favicon not accessible, P is not found kind of thing. 404 errors you will see, but you should not see anything related to application 404 errors. Alright, those are the error codes and the meanings. So this is what it is. 200 successful, so no issues at all. 300 page redirection. 404 page cannot be displayed. 403 forbidden error. 500 internal server. That's your stuff. Alright, let's move on. Now we'll see, tell me about the general errors in your environment. What you have seen earlier is the general problems. So you will list out 10 problems. There are 5 of them are common, 5 of them are not so common problems. You will pick up the easy ones to explain, especially DB crash, CPU utilization, file system full, temp is full. Then you will see network related errors. Means if you observe all these problems, you don't have anything over there to do. There's nothing that you are doing except the problem number 8, where the application went into prepared state, which you don't want to say. That will result in a lot of cross questioning. So you will list out all the problems where your WebLogic administrator is not involved. That's a smart way of saying it. Or else you can actually say about deployments, UAT data sources, other stuff. So these are common problems, the first set. The second, these are not so common but recent problems. What we are trying to see now is the error messages, the common error messages you come across. Remember these 5 error messages. One is null pointer exception. This usually occurs during deployment. The other one is out of memory error you will come across. This is also during additional, especially during heavy load. This is in production. Null pointer exception is usually in QA. Because in production you should not have the null pointer exception. By this time you should have already fixed that problem. Out of memory during the load, let's say. Stack overflow error. Now this also, again, it could be in QA most likely. Production, it's rare, but you might get. Then the other error is network adapter could not establish the connection. Now then, if the network adapter could not establish connection is there, you will see network adapter could not establish connection is because the adapter could not establish connection to the database. Now, why it could not establish connection to the database? Either the DB is crashed or connection between box and the database is down. These are the 2 reasons. Now, to check that, there is a utility called Java utils.db ping. It's in the document. Now, make sure you check that utils.db ping, and you need to mug up that command. Alright, so this is the third problem. Then resource disabled exception. When the DB is not reachable, the resource gets disabled. Means the connection pool gets disabled, so we need to re-enable the data source again. So these are the 5 errors you will come across. Alright, null pointer exception, out of memory error, stack overflow issues, network adapter could not establish connection, resource disabled exception. Apart from this, you can see a lot of things. SQL exception, file system full exception, no space exception, all that stuff. Then the next set I'll quickly go through is the types of out of memory. Normally, out of memory error is out of memory. Now there are types of out of memory errors. So when we are saying types of out of memory errors, just a minute, guys. So when we say types of out of memory errors, obviously, where can you get out of memory? Wherever there is memory, there is possibility that there can be out of memory. That's a result of this out of memory. Let's see where are the possible memories are there. There is one memory, RAM. Then you have another memory, JVM. Instead of JVM, let's call it, you have heap, you have permgen, Then in the permgen, there's another called stack. And also stack overflow is not enough. So these are the four uh, out of memories that usually you will see. Usually you can say 5 out of memory errors, but let's stick to 4 at this point. We don't see any number assessments. How many types of out of memory errors are there? You don't say there are 4 types. You just start saying it like when there is a RAM, and if there is not enough RAM space, you will get out of memory, out of swap space. That's what you will get. Out of swap space means the error message is same. java.lang.out of memory error, out of swap space means swap is either low or exhausted. In that case, swap needs to be increased. Then the second type of out of memory is heap out of memory. The XMS and XMX is out of memory. Then you know why you get out of memory. So we have 3 points. Just basically see either it's insufficient memory or there are leaks of objects. Then you need to see where there is a leak. The third thing that can cause a out of memory is we did not put it into the 3 points. It could be because of a JDBC connection leak also. Now what you have seen is a memory leak, means the object in the JVM is leaked, means object is supposed to be cleaned up but it could not clean up because the reference was left out. That's one way where the memory gets leaked. The other way memory gets leaked is in the JDBC. So when the application takes a connection object, it is expected to return it back to the pool. But if it does not return it, then obviously it will reach the max capacity. The capacity is too large. Before that, if the JVM has run out of the memory, you will see out of memory. That was because of the connection leak. So there is a different leaks. One is memory leak, other one is connection leak. Memory leak is because of the objects left out. Connection leak is because the application did not give back the connection object. So this is the third type of out of memory. Then you will see because there is a permgen can go out of memory. Then there is a stack in the JVM. What actually happens is the threads will require some space. This is our JVM, let's say. Alright, the threads will have some native memory kind of thing here. Now the native memory is basically for JVM libraries. So JVM libraries. Now JVM libraries get loaded here, and the threads will be actually using this JVM libraries. Now there is a stack here, like a stack that we have regularly. Now the stack gets used. Now sometimes if the stack is full, you will see native memory, native out of memory error. So you will have usually 3 or 4 types of out of memory. One is swap out of memory, then heap out of memory, then permgen out of memory, then you will see native out of memory. Swap is increase the RAM, heap is increase the XMX value or see if there are any memory leaks and connection leaks. Permgen increase the connection, permgen using -XX max perm size, increase it. Then native out of memory, there is another parameter -XSS stack size. This like XMS and XMX, you have XSS, the stack size. This, if it is too small, you will see native out of memory. Alright, in that case, you need to fix it by increasing the XSS value. So this thing. Alright, then you know how to fix these errors. use the 3 points. The null pointer exception is basically occurs when an object reference is null. Means usually the developer takes care of it, or we try to access the variable that does not have a reference. It's usually a developer's problem, a null pointer exception. What happens is there is something wrong with the code. Means you are trying to access a variable and the variable is not there. Now usually the developers will be able to fix the problem. Don't have to worry it. Stuck threads and hogging threads are two other things. Stuck thread is anything that is running for more than 600 seconds. Alright, and before a thread gets stuck, it probably is eating too many resources. In that case, it's called a hogging thread. Alright, we can actually see if there are any hogging threads from the admin console. So you go to console. In the console, you have go to each server, and in the monitoring tab, there is a threads tab. In the threads tab, you will see if there are any hogging threads or anything. The same thing can be seen on the dashboard of Interscope also. Now when there is a stuck thread, usually a stuck thread is because of a lot of reasons. You have DB locks, or these are some of the reasons why a stuck thread occurs. There might be database locks, or there might be native threads problem. Then if there is too much data being pulled out of the database, obviously it will take too long. And then the interface that WebLogic is connecting to may not be responding. Like just now we discussed, there is a MQ on the backend. We are trying to send messages to the MQ, so it is not responding. In that case, all our threads will be stuck. Alright, so these are some of the reasons why you might see stuck threads. So you will usually say DB logs usually cause stuck threads, or the native thread problems you will see. You can skip the native thread part. This gets you into other troubled areas. So just say stick with DB logs and any huge amount of data being pulled out, or the backend interface is not responding, like MQ. That's also you'll see stuck threads. Now when you see stuck threads, what you do? Now first of all, if you are trying to solve a problem, you need to find out what the root cause is. Right? It's like, let's say you go to a doctor. You said, I have stomach pain. Now, what's he going to do? Will he give a general medicine, or he'll try to find out why you are getting stomach pain? It could be some bad food that you ate, or it could be an ulcer, or it could be anything else. So he can't say, we'll have an operation and take off everything. Maybe it's because of just bad food that you had last night, or maybe it could be simple acidity problem. So your troubleshooting or your fixing always depends on what the cause is. Now we are trying to fix stuck threads. If you are trying to fix the stuck thread, obviously you need to look at the cause. If DB locks is the cause of stuck threads, you have to release the DB locks. If you have huge amount of data being pulled up which is causing a stuck thread, you need to stop pulling huge data, instead pull small amounts of data. If the other interface is causing stuck threads, then make sure the other interface is responding by usually bouncing it. So by working on the root cause, you will actually release the stuck threads. Now, but before, if it is something external, you can actually do it immediately. But temporary solutions are like, you can bounce the server. When there are stuck threads, the first thing you do is you take a thread down. Any problem, you basically take a thread down. Alright, if then you will see what the problem is. What's the root cause? One of these things would be a root cause. And it could be also the problem in your code sometimes. That's the reason you took a thread down. Alright, now to release the stuck threads, you can set up a ignore stuck thread property in the work managers. You will see it in the performance tuning session. If you say ignore stuck threads, WebLogic will basically ignore the stuck threads and But ignoring the stuck thread is not going to solve the problem, guys. So there is a problem and you are ignoring it. It does not mean that it's solved. The only thing is you won't see alerts or if the threads get released after some time, the problem goes away. Like once if you know that there's a genuine, let's say like data pulling, use data amounts of data if you are pulling, then you know that this problem is going to go away. So in that case, you will say ignore stuck threads. Now there might be another question like, can you kill the thread that is stuck? Which is when you normally see a Java process, you do a ps-ef and grep for Java. That's a Java process. What we are being asked is, can you kill a thread? Means inside a JVM, there are threads. Can you kill it? Now, killing a thread is actually possible in Linux. The reason is, each thread is a different process in Linux. In Solaris and some other operating system, it's not. So, if a thread is stuck, you can actually take a thread dump. Alright? In the thread dump, so the killing of the thread can be done in it can be done in Linux only. So what you have to do is, you have to first identify. The reason why it can be done is, in Linux, you usually have one process per thread. A separate process for each thread. That's the reason you will be able, if a thread is stuck, normally what happens is you won't see too many process, you will see too many processes running on a Linux system on a fully loaded system. So each thread is a Java process. Means when you do a ps-ef grep Java, you will see a lot of threads. Now if a thread is stuck, obviously you will be able to see that it's consuming too much CPU, too much memory. Then the first thing how you need to identify the thread is, you will take a thread dump. Alright. Then in the thread dump, you have the thread which is stuck. Take the thread that is stuck and take the hexadecimal code. The hexadecimal code will be visible in the thread dump. Now convert the hexa to decimal system. Now when you convert the hexadecimal to decimal, you will get the process ID, or even before that. So let's say this is what we're going to do. Take a thread dump. Then in the thread dump, take the process ID from the thread dump. But the problem is, the thread dump will have the process ID in hexa. So you look at the thread dump, you see which are stuck threads, and then take the hexadecimal code. I'm not able to show it on the system. The system is not working. So let's remember the process. Take a thread dump. In the thread dump, look for the stuck threads. Whatever is stuck thread, take the hexadecimal ID, process ID of that thread. So you have a process ID from the thread dump itself, but the problem is the process ID is in hexa. So on the operating system, you will not be able to see it. Now what we are doing is, we need to convert that hexa into hexa PID. We are converting hexa PID to decimal system. Now you have go to Google and find out a tool. There are tools like that will convert hexa to decimal. Once you have a decimal, then you can do a ps-ef grep for the PID. So you know that this thread is what is stuck. Then you do a kill -9 on it. So you can actually kill a stuck thread. It's possible only in Linux, not everywhere. Alright. This is a little intelligent process. Make sure you just know the process. Alright, these are some of the important things. Basically, converting something really normal into something extraordinary. That's what you need to do when you're explaining about problem. And when you say it like you feel it. Means you have faced these problems. You should not say like, it's like, let's say if you talk about being cold in November. Now in May, let's say you're talking to your friend. You said, November, it's very cold. That's one way of saying it. You feel like you're actually in November. Like you're shivering. Now, if you have the feeling, the way you say it will change. So make sure you feel it. Alright, we'll do some practicing about it. Alright, then we'll see how things will work. Cool. What? Let's see you in the next video or somewhere.